Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Taryn Folks. I'm from LandGate's Client Success Team, where we support our partners and all of our collaborative efforts. Today's session, it's part of an educational series on real estate, property revenue opportunities, and what our partners can do for our landowners. And if you're interested in learning more about whether it's solar, wind, oil and gas, or other resource opportunities, be sure to check the link that Jordan's going to drop in the chat. And no matter kind of where you are in your journey with land, connections and shared knowledge can create value for everyone. There's going to be a lot of tidbits we're going to share today that can be helpful for either yourself, maybe someone you know, and the common goal of what we're all here today. So with that, we're excited to highlight and spotlight LandYield, very innovative company helping forest owners tap into their voluntary carbon market. Joining with them and us is Josh and Max from Landlord. They're going to share kind of their first time carbon projects, their experience turning and funding opportunities. We're also joined by Stuart, who landowner himself. He's going to share personal experience as a landowner, explain why a carbon project made sense for his properties. And additionally, and right now, I'm thrilled to also welcome Craig Kaiser, co-founder of LandGate, to help guide today's discussion and how LandYield and LandGate and how we formed our partnership. And with that, our goal is ultimately to connect landowners like yourself to the right partners. So I want to take this time first to pass to Craig, set the tone a little bit about LandGate, how we formed our partnership with LandYield, and then we're going to dive into the story of a successful landowner opportunity. Sound good, Craig? Pass to you.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Taryn. Yeah, and welcome everybody. For those of you who this is your first time, welcome. Like Taryn said, we try to serve these webinars as being a really educational, um, uh, another quiver or another arrow in your quiver for the landowners, things like that, to eventually try to make some more revenue on your property. So we have a wonderful team with you here today from LandYield, who's going to talk to you about how you can make some money off of carbon credits. If you don't know what a carbon credit is, they're going to let you know. They're a wealth of information. For those of you who have been on these before, you know this is a very open forum. So feel free to submit questions. The folks on the call are more than happy to field those. Stuart's a landowner himself. So if you have questions of the perspective of what you should not be doing looking at your property, this is a really good webinar for that. We will be sending this out this is going to be recorded, so you will be able to rewatch this if you wish. But to get started, I just want to briefly touch on how you, as a landowner, real estate agent, there's a lot of attorneys who use the platform, how you can leverage LandGate in a very similar way. And Stuart's going to tell his story here in a little bit of how he leveraged LandGate to get connected with LandYield. But what we've done is we've created a platform that has a very large amount of data and analytics built specifically for landowners. We do have an app. Jordan's going to share some links here in the chat where you can go and download this app for free. For I think it's $6 a month. You get access to landowner information across the United States. So I'm just going to zoom in here. This is exactly what you would be getting for. You get it on the mobile, you get it on desktop, but you can zoom in anywhere and you get parcel boundaries, you get ownership information. But what's really interesting about what LandGate does is we go ahead and run analytics on every single piece of property. So you can go and look at your own property. If you're buying a piece of property, if you're managing a piece of property, you can go through and kind of check the indexes of all the potential different types of revenues on that property. We make it really easy to go ahead and get yourself and your property out in front of really high quality developers of these resources, just like LandYield. It takes you a few minutes. You can create your own listing. Common questions are, well, how much does that cost? It does not cost anything to list on LandGate. There is no listing fee and there is no commission. Okay, so LandGate is a completely different type of marketplace. LandYield and developers, they do not pay us commission to transact. That is not how it works. We are a completely open marketplace. When developers see your listing and are interested in it, they're going to reach out to you directly. And that's the story that the LandYield folks and Stuart are going to tell you today. But yeah, go ahead and check that. Always use LandGate for a nice resource. We cover all different types of resources: solar, wind, battery storage, data centers, oil and gas. If you're a landowner out there listening, really leverage us for a resource. But with all that being said, we have a wonderful panel here today. A really, really strong developer and a very knowledgeable landowner. So sit back and enjoy the conversation. Taryn, back to you, and I'm
Thank
excited to
you.
see what's coming on. Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. Josh, do you mind kind of telling us a little bit about land yields and yeah, what is a forest carbon project? Like,
Yeah,
what do you look for
absolutely.
in your properties?
Absolutely. So, my name is Josh Fain. I'm the director of Land Yield. And just by way of a little background, I have a degree in forestry and about 10 years experience developing forest carbon offset projects. And I'm really excited to run through some basics of our program with you all today, and highlight some of the advantages of land yield and the way we work with smaller landowners, non-industrial landowners across the Southeast and the Northeast, and the opportunities that provides. So I'm going to share my screen and run through some slides. Um, Here we go. I think everybody should be seeing this now. Our mission at Land Yield is to connect family forests to carbon revenue, and we think this is a great way to help families stay on the land, keep land together, prevent having to subdivide very valuable and valued forest tracts, and preserve their family legacy through the opportunity of this program. So the basic way it works is we work through the American Carbon Registry, and we use 40-year long programs to develop carbon offsets on your project. And so the way it's broken up is in two basic 20-year periods. The first 20 years is a commercial harvest deferral on all the merchantable timber that's on your property. And then the second 20 years is a selective harvest and monitoring period in which you can opt to either continue to sell carbon credits, or you can opt to do some sustainable harvesting. The 40 years is to ensure what carbon markets refer to as permanence, but it's just the durability of a carbon credit. And it's a standard that's set by the American Carbon Registry and shared by a lot of other registries. But it basically standardizes offsets so that companies that are purchasing these know what they're getting when they're buying an emission reduction ton through these registries. They know that that's consistent. You can continue to optimize non-timber resources on your property, such as pine straw, if that's what you're doing, or hunting leases, or fishing, hunting, camping, that sort of thing. Anything that doesn't really impact the timber resource is still allowed on your property. Unlike some other programs that are out there, we use remote sensing to get most of the carbon data from your forest. So we don't require an on-site inventory. We do all our reporting and our monitoring and that sort of thing throughout the project remotely. So it's kind of a big advantage to other programs where we don't have to come out and spend a week or two on your property putting in permanent forest plots. So we're a very light touch in terms of how we interface with you on the ground and on your property. We really respect people's privacy and the fact that people want to, have these forests for a reason, and it's not usually to have a lot of people coming and going. Um, this slide just sort of outlines how we determine how much carbon can be sold as additional, which is a term used in carbon markets to just mean carbon that's being sequestered and stored above a business as usual baseline. And without going into it too much, basically what we model is how the forest would be managed if it were optimizing net present value of the timber under, of course, the legal constraints of whatever state you have to be in. So we model that, and then we model your forest as it grows. And of course, we measure it yearly through the remote sensing through time. And what you see there in the slide is the yellow is the carbon that's considered additional, and those are the tons that we can sell through the carbon market. And I guess just for folks that aren't familiar, trees sequester carbon by taking in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They convert the carbon into the structure of the wood, and then of course respirate oxygen. And so, like a tree, a tree's dry weight, that is, if you took a tree and you were to suck all the water out of it, half that dry weight would be carbon. So that's sort of a rule of thumb way to think about what we're talking about here.
Yeah, you're giving basically that carbon credit is this tradable permit of what that tree is sequestering that you then are giving to ESG individuals to get into that market to qualify like their ESG goals, right?
Correct. We help companies reach their net zero and emission reduction goals by increasing carbon sequestration in private forest land.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hmm.
that's a brief way of saying
Money in the
what we're
trees.
doing here. Yeah. Um, so there is flexibility built into our program in terms of what you can do in the property other than commercial harvesting, which is not allowed. But um, you can work with a forester to implement forest health improvement treatments, such as like prescribed burning, if that's what the forest needs, or treating pests, outbreaks, if you have any of those. Um, Anything the forest needs to enhance its productivity, and it happens in supervision with a forestry professional is allowed in the program. You can continue to cut and collect firewood for personal uses. You can clear small areas for food plots, for hunting or cabin. Um, and if you want to sell the property during the project term, that's allowed as well. We just have to work with the new landowner to try and continue the project. And then, unlike some other programs, forest certification is not a requirement under our program, but it is an option. So we tried to design this methodology, and we worked with the American Carbon Registry here to try and make this methodology work really well for private family forest owners. And for those, again, that aren't familiar, the carbon registries are sort of the standard setting bodies for how these offsets are created and traded. And so they create methodologies that standardize how we have to go about collecting the data, analyzing the data from your forest, and um, modeling that data such that we know how much additional carbon is being sequestered. So that the American Carbon Registry helps standardize that, and then they're the platform through which we trade these credits. And ACR is one of the largest in North America, and has been in operation since 1996. So, the key benefits of joining our program is that we provide you regular cash flow um, for growing your forest, basically, and keeping your forest intact. Um, you can continue to earn income from non-timber forest products, like I mentioned. Um, and so, you know, you don't have to necessarily now choose between having your forest, having it be intact, such that your family can continue to enjoy all the wonderful things that these forest lands provide, and having money. I mean, this helps a lot of landowners. We hear from people like Stuart all the time that our payments help them maintain the roads and fences and culverts and all that good stuff on the property, as well as just helping pay the taxes and other expenses, so that they can keep the land together, not subdivided, and keep it in the family. And of course, that has all kinds of environmental benefits other than just carbon sequestration, right? I mean, recreation, water quality, air quality, wildlife habitat, etc. Um, we believe our program is a little different than other carbon projects that have been out there, and other carbon programs that have been out there, in that we do pay generally a higher revenue share than a lot of other programs. Our credits are registered, as I mentioned, through the American Carbon Registry. And key is we do a turnkey project development, meaning you as a landowner, once you've enrolled in the project, don't have to worry about any of the monitoring or the reporting requirements. We have a very simple attestation form you fill out to just attest that you're adhering to the program requirements. Other than that, we handle all of the registry requirements for you. which is a key question to ask when you're looking at these different kind of programs. This is a really high world-class collaboration, we believe, between ourselves, the American Carbon Registry that I've mentioned several times, and Finite Carbon, who developed our platform that I'm going to show you here in just a few minutes and helps us manage all the forest data. And the end result is high integrity verified carbon offsets that get the highest prices available on the marketplace. Getting started in this is really easy. You can go to landyield.com, get a lot more detailed information on our program, read landowner testimonials, see our frequently asked questions, and get all the details you need. Once you've got all the information, you can also get a free general estimate of how much your carbon payments might be right on our website. Then you can go to corecarbon.com and create your profile. And then verify your identification, identify the tax parcels that you want to be a part of your carbon project, and then upload your deeds and tax bills, copies of those. And then basically you're done, and we send you contracts, and you can start getting paid the quarter following your enrollment. So unlike some other programs, again, we don't make you wait until we've issued and sold the credits. That can be year to 2 years before you see any payments. We start paying you in the quarter immediately following your enrollment. So here's a screenshot from the platform, Core Carbon. As I said, we have all this forest data is already preloaded into this platform. So once you come on there, you can just find your tax parcels, kind of similar to what Craig showed in the LandGate interface. You find your tax parcels, you click on them, it'll show you what forest in your tax parcels are eligible for our program. Not all forest land is. It has to be of a merchantable size and density. So some forest land, if it's very young, is not eligible for our program. But this will show you what's eligible. You just click on the parcels and it'll give you an instant free estimate. And this is Mr. Meese's project right here. He kindly agreed to let us show his project, so we would have even more tangible thing to talk about here. And you can instantly see how many forested acres here, 129, that were eligible on his property, and then his revenue projections. So I'll let Stuart talk in a minute about his experience with the platform, but we believe it is about as easy as we can make it. We're always trying to prove, of course, but it is a relatively simple process for getting that revenue estimate, and seeing you don't have to wait a long time and go through a lot of steps before you see what are we talking about here, how much money could I get. That's right up front with us. Forest types and conditions that make a good fit for a project with us is like long rotation forests, such as like hardwoods, mixed hardwood forest. Certain pines may or may not be a good fit. Like if you have longleaf pine on your property, that can be a good fit, but short rotation pine plantations, not generally a good fit for our projects. Areas of high conservation value, such as rare habitats, can be a great fit. Sensitive areas where you just wouldn't want to do a lot of harvesting, riparian zones, and just anywhere where you have mature merchantable timber, but it's not really what you want to do with a property is harvest. Like you'd rather do something else with it and keep it intact. And I guess I will add to this, and I think it was one of the questions that I saw before this was, if there is already a legal encumbrance on the timber and you already have a conservation easement that says you cannot cut the timber on your property, then unfortunately we cannot do a carbon project because the timber is already protected. So this has to be additional protection on top of what you already have. It's just worth mentioning. So there's pretty much 6 easy steps in the process. I won't go through them all, but I mean, you go on the platform, you evaluate the economics, you get that instant quote, you submit your documentation, we'll review your documentation to make sure everything's in line. We'll send you contracts to review. you sign up and then you start receiving payments. All of this can happen in a matter of weeks instead of years. And so we're really excited about this opportunity. Like I said, I've been working on forest carbon projects for quite a while, and I've worked on a lot of iterations of trying to figure out ways to make it economical for smaller landowners to take advantage of the opportunity. And up until recently, this has been a super difficult thing because of the rigorous on-ground inventories that were required. And it just didn't make a lot of sense on forests that were smaller than 5 to 10,000 acres. With us, you can, if you have as little as 40 acres, you are eligible for our program. So 40 to 5,000 acres now is eligible within our program. So there's our information right there. I ran through a lot of information there really fast, and I know we're going to have some question and answer and chat back and forth. So I look forward to that. And thanks for the opportunity, Taryn, to run through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Would you like, I can share some of the questions that we had fueling that and then tie into we're talking about kind of two platforms here, right? It's those individuals finding yourself to get that estimate for theirs, how their property can look, but then it's before that, right? LandGate, how did you and Stuart come to meet? So let me field some of those questions, and if we don't have those answers, we'll get back to you for any of those sharing, and then we'll jump into that space of um, that experience working with a real life, story. Um, we have from Jim. I thought the ACR methodology required certification or American Tree Farm. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So within ACR is a registry that has a lot of different project types and different methodologies. And some of their methodologies do require forest certification. Those methodologies generally allow for commercial harvesting. So that's why forest certification is necessary in those, because our program is a delayed harvest program. We do not require forest certification.
Okay, thank you. And Tim shared, my wife and I are in our 80s, so it's likely that our property will have to be sold within the next 10 years. What if a prospective buyer did not want to participate in the sold program? Is that a little bit about what you shared of that protection of those rights down the line?
Yeah, so on the sale of a property, we can either work with a new owner to take on the contracts, like we said, or we can terminate the project. And we have termination clauses in our contracts that allow landowners who have to get out of a project to get out. So there are provisions to allow for that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, great. Another one kind of going a little bit further in that is we had another question. Now, of course, we have new administration and with it a reduced concern for the environment and global warming. Do you anticipate that that will adversely affect your carbon offset industry?
well, that's a good question. This is a great example of probably the least, well, let's just say the freest market that I'm aware of out there. Unlike a lot of commodity markets, this is not a government regulated market. It's a voluntary market where it's willing buyer, willing seller, where we connect forest owners who are willing to delay timber harvest with companies that are willing to pay them for that. And so there's no government intervention in there. So um, during the previous Trump administration, we did not see a downturn. In fact, we saw carbon markets increase activity and carbon credits increase in value. So, um, no, we do not anticipate a big downturn in the market.
Nice, nice. And this might tack into where we're going to go next, but Eric shared, do you offer referral fee to real estaters, licensed real estate salespersons? Do you also have a referral fee for your own program?
A referral fee for our own
Or
program.
like
Yeah,
ref
Josh, what he's getting at, there's a lot of real estate agents that utilize LandGate and listen to these webinars. So oftentimes we'll get questions of, okay, well, they might know someone that has a piece of property that fits exactly what you guys are looking for. They're going to look at it and say, okay, well, can we get a referral fee? And I think we talked about this earlier, guys, that you guys don't currently maybe offer that methodology, but and something I wanted to say this earlier is that um, you know, we have a lot of folks who use the LandGate platform, all the way from landowners who, and we're going to get to Stuart here in a little bit, to real estate agents. Sometimes they work on behalf and just a contractual basis with that landowner. So when you talk about referrals, a lot of real estate agents do earn referrals the same ways that they would earn a commission off of
Sure.
a type of
Sure.
contract. So
Yeah.
that's a way they could do it. I think for these carbon programs, Josh, that's probably maybe a better model versus them earning commission on a different side that you might see in like data centers or solar, just because the financial compensation is different on a per acre basis. Do you want to comment or add anything to that, Josh?
No, just that we do work with some large forest consulting companies, and we have some agreements with some of them. I mean, I would be open to talking to real estate agents or real estate companies that are interested in that. We're always open to talking about it.
Yeah, and just in that scenario, if there's a realtor listening and you've got X amount of acreage that you think you can bring to the market, by putting that on LandGate, and I think this is where we're going to get to right next, is listening to Max and Stuart talk about how they were connected. If you know of someone out there who has property that you may be able to represent and bring that opportunity to the market, posting that on LandGate will get that in front of the LandYield team. They will see that, and if it fits if Max sees it and likes it, he's going to pick up the phone. And he's going to call you directly. So I think that's a really good segue, actually, in kicking it over to Max, how you and Stuart met, and Stuart, what steps you did to elevate your property in a way. You get out of things in life that you put in, right? Stuart kind of went out and did some research, found some resources, and here he is talking to a whole bunch of landowners and sitting here with LandYield, turning his. This is a really important point. Turning his asset, his land, into now a cash flowing asset, right? It fundamentally changes the economic scenario of that asset because now it has revenue tied to it. So, with all that being said, we'll kick it over to Stuart and Max. If you guys
Yeah,
want to go ahead and tell the
happy
story.
to. And thank you, Craig. And just going back to what we were saying about, referrals, and certainly, if you're an agent out there, you work with landowners, definitely, put the properties out there on LandGate. And at the same time, if you have a property that has carbon potential, go on Core Carbon and see what the value of that is. I mean, we do have a delegate function, so you're able to set up sites on behalf of another landowner, and that's a great way to kind of get insight. And if you see that and it looks good, you can reach out to the landowner and say, hey, here's what the potential carbon revenue is, and then reach out to us. We want to talk to you. As Craig mentioned, I'm the sales and marketing manager here at LandYield, and I'm spending a ton of time talking to landowners and looking for landowners, and LandGate has been an incredible resource to help with that. And so as I'm looking at listings, I'm speaking to a lot of land managers and real estate agents who kind of are representing different folks. Always the best when I get to speak directly with a landowner, and Stuart is in so many ways kind of the model landowner. I guess let's let you, Stuart, kind of start with the beginning of your journey and what made you kind of put your property on LandGate.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for having me. My name is Stuart Meese, and actually live in Greensboro, but my farms are in southern Virginia, near Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia, largest man-made state the largest man-made lake in the state of Virginia. Pennsylvania County is the largest county in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's larger than the state of Rhode Island. My family came over from west of Scotland to be farmers, and they continued for a couple hundred years until I bucked the trend with that. But I grew up on a tobacco and beef cattle farm, and over the years, my dad, myself, we'd done a lot of things, but it was more reactive. Somebody came to us, and that's everything from cell towers, billboards, the natural gas Mountain Valley Pipeline, hunting rights, selling timber, rental properties for houses, cabins, farm leases, you name it. And as I've taken on more ownership and stewardship of it, I knew I wanted to be a little bit more proactive in this process, because I felt like there was probably other stuff out there. We just didn't know a lot about it. And so one of the first
Hey,
things I did.
Hey, Stuart, real quick. You're a little bit quiet. Can
Just
you
pull
maybe
down
move?
your,
Ah,
Can you pull
thank
your
you.
microphone?
Do I need to go
There we
through that
go.
again?
No,
Sorry.
no.
no.
I think we're good. Just to summarize, if you guys haven't heard, Stuart isn't your run-of-the-mill landowner. He comes from a very, very large background. I mean, they own a lot of acres. They've been experienced a lot of different contracts, a lot of different potential resource values on their property, and there you go. That's kind of sums up what Stuart said. But yeah, we got you
Yeah,
much
so
clearer now.
so we basically went from reactive to being more proactive. And so one of the things I said is so many people ask me about the farm when I tell them about it. I said, as opposed to going to Google Maps and showing them something or Google Earth, I had a friend that needed to test out his new drone toy and he needed some large acreage. And I said, why don't you come and do that on our land? He said, all right, I'll give you the footage and, won't charge you a lot for it. And so we got drone footage of the 3 farms that we have. And I thought it would be handy down the road. Again, not looking to sell it, but knowing that something may come out. And so as I did my research, as Craig and Max said, I came on this site called LandGate. Never heard of it, didn't know much about it, but what I could easily see in my mind very quickly, it became kind of the Zillow for landowners in my sense, where if you've been on Zillow, and let's do a little engagement, how many people love Zillow? Thumbs up in the chat there. They give a Zestimate is basically what they give, which is, um, it's not an appraisal, but it's more it's giving you some insight as to what your value of your land potentially could be in a lot of different areas, 15, 20 different options, some things I don't even know what it is. And when I got that report, I said, wow, this is incredible, because it basically gave me a ranking of what could go there, what the value could be, and a lot of other information. I thought it would be very, very helpful. Again, not an appraisal, more of an assessment, I guess you would call it, of the land. I said, well, that's really cool. Well, it doesn't cost anything. Might as well put it up there. I noticed there's a lot of bubbles on the map, and I said, all right, this must be legit. And ended up getting a call from Max one day. He said, hey, here's how I found you about carbon credits. You know anything about carbon credits? I said, well, little. He said, well, tell me about your property. And I said, well, timber consultant said we may need to think about thinning it. Land, the lease person that leases at a hunt club, they didn't really want to do much to it, but agreed that it need to be thinned a little bit. So we go out and mark it. And then being in a small town, let us know if you're from a small town. News travels quick. So as soon as those orange ribbons go up around the trees, people start talking. What's that guy doing with the land? And it quickly got to a guy saying, "Don't sell it. Excuse me, don't cut it. If you're going to cut it, then I want to buy it." I said, "All right, well, give me a price." And he kind of hemmed and hawed. And by that time, the timber prices went down. And I said, "Well, no, I don't think I really wanted. I don't really want to sell it. Don't want to thin the timber." And about that time, Max calls and says, there's something else called carbon credits you may want to take a look at. And I said, well, I don't really want to put it into conservation easement. I'm not really looking to sell it. But through that exercise that I just went through is that people, if I did sell it, people would want to keep it the way that it is. And I said, it'd be nice to have a little bit of additional revenue off of it. And so that's kind of how we got through this process of this. And I will say that, when I was kind of weighing the aspects of this, my thinking was, if I'm just going to sell it to someone else, there's very little impact, down the road. If someone wants to conserve it, buy it themselves. If a big developer comes in, well, they're probably going to pay way more to get out of any contract that we may have down the road. On the flip side, if someone was looking at it, it also adds a lot of value because you have a guaranteed revenue stream on it for up to 40 years. And don't let the 40 years scare you, because of all the other stuff we've done. It's been at least 25 or 30-year agreement, usually 5-year updates each time. So that's going to be pretty much standard. And as Josh said, there's going to be ways to get out of that at that particular time. Not that I want to do that, but there are some options there. And so, we went through the process. Not on this call from the LandYield team is Grace. She was very patient in working with us, because many of you may have the same problem. When you have a farm that's been in the family for 175 years, very rural area, not many educated folks. I like to tell people that the deed was written on stone by Moses, and that stuff just isn't around anymore. And so it was very helpful. This was a favorable outcome of this that's not monetary related. Is by working with Grace and a local attorney, we were able to get some much more updated information on our land that I knew we probably had to get if we were going to sell. I just didn't know how in detailed it would be. But now it kind of forced me to go through that process to get some of the real estate records in order, and I'm very glad for that. I think another thing that I have would urge you to look at in other stuff that we have done on our property. There's been a lot of government regulation and permitting and a longer process to getting stuff done. And in this case, there was none. Land yield kind of takes that, as what Josh was saying, it kind of takes that for you. And so I think that's a benefit, that if you're looking at other stuff like these solar, 5-7 years sometimes it's taking. The couple in there, it's in their 80s. That's not exactly something you want to be thinking about doing, probably, is looking 5-7 years out. And as Josh said, we signed I forget when we signed it, but it was fourth quarter, and the first payments coming in quarter one. So it's a very quick turnaround to get some additional revenue on your property. And then the final thing that I've been trying to help Max with, and just being a community person, trying to take care of people, because again, I've seen the Mountain Valley pipeline come through the area, and the landowner, uneducated, didn't know any different, wasn't able to negotiate, just took the first offer type of thing. And these people, in a very economic distressed area, they just don't know what they don't know. So from that process, I've tried to help other landowners that may not have the level of experience that I have, to showcase other opportunities for them. And that's what I've been trying to do with Max. Other large landowners that I think have similar properties to ours that may be in a similar position, I've just been trying to connect Max to those individuals so that they would have conversations. And what I find is most people still are unaware that something like that exists. And when I tell them, it's very, very little risk, I think, associated with it, then I think that helps. The fact, anybody from, a rural environment knows that community helps one another, and this is just another way we can do it. So that's another value, I think, of interacting with someone like LandGate LandYield. So that's my experience. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Let us know where you're from. Also, get a little engagement going. Where you're from, I'd love to know geographically where you're from as well, if you want to add that in the chat.
Stuart, you said something, and I want Max to be able to touch on this as well, because I think it's really important. You said you've taken more of a proactive stance than a reactive stance. Expand on that. What do you mean by being proactive versus reactive? And once he answers that, Max, describe the difference between engaging with a landowner who's being proactive versus a landowner who might be reactive, just waiting for something to happen.
Well, I think in terms of reactive, if I think about all the things that had happened, somebody would stop and say, hey, have you ever thought about selling the timber on that land? Hey, there's going to be a public hearing because there's going to be a utility going through your land. When cell phones became a thing, in the early 2000s, it's just because we had property that had the highest elevation. We weren't doing anything. We were just responding to market conditions. Nothing like LandGate was available at that time that could give you an idea of whether or not your property had value in some of these verticals. So from a proactive nature, I said, all right, well, now's the time in life, I think, that I need to be proactive about it. I'm not getting any younger. I don't want my kids to have to deal with some of this stuff. I want to try and maximize it. And so back to what I was saying before, I started doing a lot of reading, talking to people, and trying to create something from a more marketing promotional sense that I could share with people. So like I said, the video, letting people know about it. Again, not necessarily putting it on the market or working with a real estate agent, but just being kind of self-promoter of what it is, and kind of taking it on yourself to understand, what the opportunities may be out there. I mean, we've looked at solar, it didn't work at that time. We've looked at mineral rights, didn't think that was the best at that particular time. Although we may have to come back to it because the largest uranium deposit in North America is in our county. And with the way data centers are going, and in order to fuel them, there's not enough. I mean, you're going to have to go nuclear, and what fuels nuclear is uranium. So I can imagine there's something coming in Pittsylvania County pretty soon related to that. I mean, we looked at storage units, boat storage, RV storage, all these types of things. It's just being proactive about what makes the most sense in this. And I think the biggest thing is, just like in life, everyone has a coach or an expert. So, my carbon guy now is Max, if I want to know about it. Just like my timber consultant or financial consultant, or, a dietitian or a physical therapist. You got to have all these people that know more than you, and you're basically a project manager within this. So that's the way I look at it from this land. There's, 15, 20 plus different things that you can get. Some of it may not work at that particular time, but I'm going to go to someone that knows more than me to kind of help. And fortunately, I found a lot of those individuals, but that was not always the case. So like the cell tower in 03-ish, somewhere 04 maybe, we didn't know what it was. Do you really want this? Am I going to get cancer because of the cell phone? You didn't know at that time. And then when you try to get somebody to represent you, no one really knew anything about it. It was Verizon. All the attorneys already had a conflict because they were representing Verizon for some other. So you were basically out on an island. I couldn't find anybody. 15 years later, we renegotiated with the company that bought it from Verizon through a guy I found in Nashville, Vertical Consultants. And he gave us a hell of a better deal than we could have gotten before. So, my suggestion is let the Maxes of the worlds and Joshes and Craigs and all the other people that you have, real estate agents, accountants, let them help you, because you may be actively managing your farm, or you may have another more demanding job, or taking care of elderly parents or small children. You don't have time, execute your network in order to let them help you find some of these revenue streams.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm touching on too. Build your network. In this case, LandGate's helping build that network, and then brand yourself. And like, what are those helpful tags that Stuart did? A lot of, Max, you can talk about what enticed you to see Stuart's land highlighted from you on our marketplace that Stuart went, which is like, what's my land worth for this? Found LandGate.
Yeah, and I think when we think about being proactive, I think of it in kind of two things. There's the really, the first thing Stuart did was just the way that he presented his land and his project, clearly putting care into it. And then when I reach out, being responsive, being informative, I could tell from the background and the thought in that conversation. But, from our perspective, at times it feels like for me, I'm in the middle of 1,000 different conversations. And so, Josh and I and our team, we do so much work in developing these projects, but we do need landowners to, meet us halfway. So it's so helpful when landowners take initiative, reach out, follow up with us, check in. That just helps things move along so much. And, Stuart can speak to how relatively easy we make it by, doing so much of the work and dealing with the legal, putting, the estimates together, building all of that. But it's really helpful, I think, particularly if you're a smaller landowner. I will spend a little more time and energy chasing a landowner who has a few thousand acres. When you have a couple hundred acres, it really makes all the difference when you kind of take that initiative and are proactive and are kind of transparent about what you need. The other part of being proactive, though, is understanding in kind of the way that you're managing your land that your forest is creating carbon value. And so it's kind of up to you whether or not that makes sense for you to realize it. One of the other things that was, unique about Stuart is, y'all had 3 properties, and we only ended up doing projects on 2 of them. And it was really understanding that, like, A carbon project does not make sense for every
Yeah.
forest. It doesn't make sense for every landowner, but it is a tool, and there may be a stand or a section that, hey, this is the area we're not really interested in harvesting this timber. This property is more about hunting and recreation, or this property's been in our family so long, it's our responsibility to continue taking care of it for the next generation. And so there's so much carbon value being created, and to, instead of just kind of sitting back and letting that value accrue without taking advantage of it, being proactive, at least understanding and finding out what is the carbon value.
Max, that's really good. There's a question that came in while you guys were expanding on that, you guys take some time to speak to the robustness of land yield itself, right? Dennis asked a question. Can you guys talk about the strength and stability? You guys deal with landowners all the time. Something they want to know, especially I'm a landowner as well. I don't want to be signing a deal or talking with a company that might be gone in 12 months, right? So can you guys talk about, um, how confident can the landowners be working with a really high quality company like you guys?
Yeah. So I mean, at LandYield, we have a lot of experience. We're a relatively new developer using this technology, but we have a lot of experience in the market. We work with Mercuria, which is a very established company that backs us, and we are absolutely committed to being with these landowners throughout the process. And our business model is built on long-term relationships and long-term contracts with landowners, and that is what our revenue model is built on, and everything that we're built on. Um, and of course, you know, God forbid something unforeseen happens and we do go away, there are clauses in our contracts that release you from your obligations. So we're in for the long haul. We're committed. We've got great backing, and also, we're not going to trap you in something if something unforeseen happens to us as a company. And
Yeah.
I guess
I was just
go
going to say
ahead.
on that, Josh, you guys never pressured you. I could always feel like I could trust you guys. There was always that mutual respect and understanding, and which I have not gotten from other stuff in the past, other companies in the past. So that's very genuine and authentic. That really came out during the process.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, because we really are. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but I'm going to say it now because Stuart backed me up on this. But we really do care about helping people do what's right for their families and their priorities. And then, of course, we're in it to see forest conservation and what's right for the environment. So, like, we really care about this from both sides. And I think, I've worked in forest conservation for over 20 years, and I think that the way it happens is through being honest with people, through being straightforward with people. I've seen a lot of other companies come and go, and flash in the pan kind of things come and go. And it's because they're not driven by integrity and actually caring about their mission. It's just about, whatever it's about for them, getting a return on investment or something. So I'm really glad to hear you say that, Stuart. And like, I just wanted to say one thing about the proactive thing. That LandGate is really great, I think, for landowners, like you were saying, Stuart, to see all your different options. And then what we can see as a user of LandGate is like people who have expressed interest in a carbon project. So when we get a contact and when we talk to somebody like Stuart, it's not just like a cold contact or somebody just wandering in off the street or whatever. We know that they have expressed interest in this. So it's worth our time and effort to go after these folks and educate and spend time on the phone and talking to you and stuff like that. So it really helps us, because we don't have a huge staff. We try to be as efficient as possible to return as much value to the landowners as we can. And so I would really encourage people to use this platform, and I'm not getting paid to say that. Like it is really helpful for
Yeah.
not just carbon developers, but all these other opportunities. It's a great filter for us. So I just want
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a, I'm gonna add to that really quick I wrote this down in last week in our meeting with you guys, and something that stuck out, and you guys mentioned it multiple times. It was just us on the call having a conversation, and this is for the landowners listening. You guys mentioned last week family legacy quite a few times, and we deal with a lot of landowners who come to LandGate And the idea is they want to make revenue on the property, but things are tight financially. Things are tight. Like big landowners, the saying is they're land rich, but their bank account's a little poor, right? All of their assets are tied up in the land. So every landowner, big or small, is trying to find a way to keep that land together, keep the family farm together, to keep the family legacy together. And Stuart, you mentioned that last week as well, that you are a steward of the land. You're not an owner of land. Your job is to keep that land for the kids and the grandkids and the great grandkids, right?
That's right.
We hear that time and time again. How can I make this happen? And we hear terrible stories where it's like, well, I'm thinking about having to sell that 40 acres or that 120 or that 320. And I'm very proud of what we've done at LandGate, and that's why I'm bringing that up. You guys mentioned the family legacy. You give landowners the ability to continue that family legacy. You're not going to be making $1 million an acre off carbon credits, but it is revenue, and it's significant revenue that can absolutely help with the bottom line of a balance sheet of what you need to look at your land as. It's an asset, and now it is a cash. Land yield can help make it a cash flowing asset. And we talked about this, Stuart. If you were to sell that property, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's a benefit because now you have a guaranteed cash flow on that piece of property. They run a discounted cash flow analysis on it, and it brings additional revenue. And we've seen that time and time again across all the resources. But I do just want to make that stuck out to me talking with you guys, is that was a big part of what you guys do, is making sure landowners can maintain that family legacy. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you did want to sell it, one of the options, so many people are doing 1031 land exchanges now, looking for a place to put their land or put their money without having to pay the taxes. And if you have a piece of property that already is generating revenue, that's going to be very attractive too. It's again, if you want to sell it, different from the family legacy. You know, back to, and I know this is not going to be for everybody. I hope I can say this, Josh and Max, but basically for ours, it turned out to be about $50 an acre for 40 years, essentially. And that's the basement, because it goes market rate after year 3. So assuming that this
$50 an acre a year, right? Per acre per year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So that just gives you an idea. So in our part, we get about maybe $10 an acre hunting. The farm lease is less than that because we're trying to help a small farmer out, and there's some other tax benefits to that. But that just kind of gives you an idea. And back to the authenticity of this thing, to tell you that land yield is not just out for them. I mean, there was a time where I put in a 13-acre tract, and I said, well, I think I want to pull that. They could have easily said, well, I'm just going to get as much as I can. But once I explained it and said, I'm not sure I want to put that in there because I think that may have another maybe better revenue producing benefit down the road if I did want to sell it or do something else with it. And so they were totally fine with it. I just go on there, the screen. I don't know if you're going to show that, Max, but I just clicked off of it and totally fine with it. So once you get in the process, there's things that that you'll think about, that there's opportunity for you to get feedback and so forth through that. And I thought it was very flexible, very easy to use. When we went on that land, core carbon, it had all the information. You could see it visually. It gives you the estimated revenue stream per year. I mean, it was, like I said, all of this is very Zillow-ish. I don't know if that's a word or not, but if you've used Zillow to look for homes and stuff, I mean, all the information is right there in front of you. It's just very super friendly to use, user friendly to use. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to have it up there, because it's like, man, why not? At least people know that information is out there. I'm not sure I want my neighbors to have it, but if you're in Michigan or Mississippi, right, and someone's looking for something, I'm just kidding there, Josh. I want my neighbors to have it too, but I don't know why you wouldn't put it up there. It really makes no sense to have it listed on LandGate, and if you have over 40 acres of timber, based off of what he was saying before, why wouldn't you at least consider it? It makes no sense why you wouldn't. I don't really see a lot of downside for either one of them.
You guys, there's a very common question whenever we talk about carbon credits, and James Abbott put a question in there, and Stuart, you kind of touched on it. You're getting paid $50 per acre per year, right? And people pay attention to that. It's per acre per year. A lot of you folks out there might have signed an oil and gas lease or a pipeline easement where it's a one-time payment. Stuart's getting paid $50 per acre per year. You heard him say that, the hunting lease was $10 an acre. So he's getting a 5X of what that recreation lease was doing. That's significant. That's a significant value. But maybe over to Max and Josh, what, on average, looking across the United States, what are landowners looking for the types of properties that you're looking for? What are the ranges on a dollar per acre per year? What are they kind of looking at there? What's kind of a low value? What's a high value that they can just to get them excited about it?
I think it depends what part of the country you're in, what type of stands you have, kind of the level of maturity and density. So, I mean, we really range on the low end, it's $20. Those are going to be your not as dense forests, usually in the Northeast. And then on the high end, it's kind of where Stuart is in Virginia, areas that have high hardwood density, around Appalachia. And then, we're seeing $50 and sometimes a little higher. I think the highest we've seen is about $55 per acre. So I think it was James who asked that question, but please, reach out to us, follow up. I'll help you set up a core carbon account and you can see exactly what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. And Josh, do you talk about the regions you focus on too? Are you all?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add, growth rates, in addition to forest conditions, growth rates really play into your payments as well. So yes, we're in 26 states right now, from Maine down to Florida, out to East Texas, East Oklahoma, Arkansas, Ohio, sort of that part of the country. We're working on expanding our database and platform to the lake states. And we hope to have that available later this year, and then eventually the Pacific Northwest as well.
That's
So
great.
right now we got all of the Southeast and Northeast covered.
That's great. So I mean, ultimately, guys, if anybody's out there listening, they're a landowner, they're interested in land yield, they might have some property for you, reach out directly to you guys, have you guys look over it, put it on LandGate, you guys will see it, get it out there. I think ultimately what you're saying is, and Stuart, I think you hit the nail on the head. It doesn't cost you anything. Is it a guarantee that it's going to work? It may or may not be. But when you raise your hand and you show interest, that catches the attention of good, high quality companies like LandYield, and they're going to devote some time to reach out to you and at least review your project. So we're about wrapped up. We're here at the top. Josh and Max, is there anything that you guys want to leave the crowd with? And we'll kick it over to Stuart as well.
I just really grateful to be here and get the chance to talk to everybody, and really grateful for Stuart joining, and thanks. Appreciate the attention.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you to all you guys. Thank you so much, Stuart and Craig. And then the last thing I would say is, any landowners out there who are curious, please reach out. We want to talk to you, and happy to have that conversation and, see if there's potential carbon value for you. So it looks like Jordan just put our contact info in the chat. And please, you text us, call us, send us an email. We want to hear from you.
And I got a private message from Aaron Lindy saying that he actually has family that lives on Smith Mountain Lake right beside the property we're talking about. He lives in Minnesota. So how wild is that? Great to hear that. But again, thanks to LandYield, LandGate folks for having us. Glad to help and participate in this program. And hopefully any of those on the call, if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them from a landowner. But I don't see any downside of working with each of these groups for your own properties.
Well said. Well said. Thank you for everyone's time and your partnership together. I think it's all trying to make the world a little bit smaller to find each other.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a first. That's a first to have a private message go out that you just found a new neighbor, Stuart. That's a
Right.
great thing.
Maybe he wants to buy it. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Well, you guys have a conversation. See where it leads. Let us know. Well, Karen, thank you so much for hosting. Great job. And you guys, if you're listening, we'll be doing this again in a couple weeks. So stay tuned. Thanks to everybody. You guys all have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.